Hi, Marcia. Thank you for joining me for this interview. Thank you for volunteering. Please introduce yourself for people who don't know.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here with you and with everyone today. I'm Marcia Elizabeth Thompson. I hold a doctoral degree in Chinese medicine, and I specialize as a Chinese medicine psychologist in helping women find and create financial freedom through their recovery from childhood and developmental traumas. That's how I spend my time these days.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. So, what actually got you into that particular space?
So I started out working as a Pilates instructor and came to quickly see that the chronic pain patterns in people's bodies were actually chronic psychological pain patterns, what we call blocks, that are living in our bodies. And our bodies are manifesting them as difficult movement patterns, overuse injuries. That then led me to Chinese medicine school because Chinese medicine in the world of Eastern philosophy started to answer all the questions I had about what's going on with people's body, and came to understand that it was really the mind and the spirit manifesting in the physical self. And as I went along, I became certified as a trauma professional. I'm a certified trauma therapist. I'm certified in EMDR. I started calling all of these different modalities to me to support this path of freeing the mind and the spirit through the body, and came to see that money and finances, which are related to our first chakra issues of just being able to support ourselves, finances were the one critical factor that was absent and not in this discussion of recovery.
So, what, how do you explain to new, like, potential clients or patients what it is that you do?
I don't actually, because I can't.
Mm,
What I do at this point, and someone described it best. One of the patients that I was treating last year was talking to some friends of his, and they asked him, "What does she do for you? What does she do?" And he said, "Well, she does whatever you need,"
mm,
which really is the solid answer. Because there are multiple things that I do. There are multiple things in which I am certified. I've been doing this for 20 years. I suppose if I had to contextualize it, it's what the Eastern philosophies instruct us being practitioners, or instruct me to do. It's to be the space and to be the present consciousness that serves as the guide, as the teacher, and as the reflection for whoever's in front of me on their personal path.
that's really interesting. That's a really interesting approach, and I think that's because like people don't usually think about the money aspect, but it's actually huge in our lives. So it's really interesting because and a lot of people there's a lot of shame around it as well. So it's yeah, this is a really interesting approach. I never considered, as a healing thing, but it does need to be healed. So what would you say is a common misconception that people have about what it is that you do and your approach?
Common misconception. Well, most people don't understand. Usually, when I tell people what I do, they don't really understand how that's going to help them change their lives. Like everybody understands money, and yeah, I want more money. And yeah, I'd love to be able to get out of debt. I'd love to have this crushing pressure of constant credit card debt off me. I'd like to be able to do more for my family. Everyone gets that part. But what they don't understand is that what we do together, it's a partnership. What we do together is reestablish the trust that you had in yourself when you were little, before the developmental traumas, before the life expectations, before the gender normative pressures that assail and assault us as women start to come into play. Back to your original self. When we partner in helping you get back to your original self, then you're free. And the common misconception is that it's going to be like this really beautiful, touchy-feely, like high order spiritual experience where you're going to find yourself like with having grown wings on your back and you're going to be financially free now. It's a process, and it's a process of changing the way you live for the rest of your life. It's not just like a 6-month boot camp or 6-week boot camp, or it's not like you do this course and suddenly everything changes. There's magic in the process, but it's the magic that takes place of working it every day with a lot of gentle, loving tenderness, because it pulls up like the deepest, most painful, difficult things in your life narrative. So the common misconception is that it's like, it's nice and I'm going to tell you a couple tricks and you're going to be good to go.
Yeah, it's not that
It's the way
easy.
it's the hardest thing you will ever do is to transform your karma, because you're changing your generational trauma. You're changing who you think you are. You're changing your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
It's the deepest work that we do. So the common misconception is that it's quick, it's easy, or it's a fix. There's nothing to fix. There's
Mm,
nothing wrong as such. It's just, how do we get you from here to here?
mm.
It's through here.
So what would you say is the hardest part about helping people with this kind of trauma for you?
Doing my own work on and with myself, because every relationship I have with my patients is unique, just like you and I are like snowflakes. Every relationship is a snowflake. So I have to be constant and clear enough with myself that I can be the channel or the teacher or the guide for each person with whom I relate.
So what would you say is the easiest part for you?
This, like what you and I are doing right now, being in relationship to one another. The easiest part is remembering that ultimately this all leads to freedom for the heart
Mm,
and just being still with myself and feeling that melding of heart energies, that connection and the openness, the opening of the person with whom I'm working. Like that's the easiest part for me.
so what would you say keeps you motivated?
That
I was thinking that that would be what keeps you motivated because it sounds very motivating. Do
it
you have,
is.
oh, I was going to ask another question, but you can go ahead. Oh, um, do you have any story that captures why it is that you continue to do what you do?
Endless stories and endless stories. I can think of two right now. Okay, first one, someone with whom I'm working right now. We've been working together for a little over a year. And she started with extreme developmental trauma, CPTSD, and she has a laundry list of diagnoses, so many diagnoses. And she couldn't hold a conversation with me when we first started. She would go into what she identified as, an ADD, ADHD, loss of focus, which is really a trauma response
Mm,
from quite simply not having been listened to,
mm,
not having been supported. We've done EMDR together, we've done somatic therapy together. And after just a few months, like 2, 3 months, she could just sit and talk to me and have a conversation without having like a pain response or without having to get up and run to the loo because her digestive system was overacting in trauma response.
mm.
And now, like, just a year later, she is totally in charge of her life in a
Wow.
way that is absolutely astonishing to me. Like there was this person inside of her this whole time. Like it's the person that got her to where she was, like to reach out to me. And it was the part of her that knew enough she was supposed to be living a better and different life. Another story, I have a woman who came to me who had had a Kundalini awakening. which really was a case of possession. And this is, I love talking about this part because we don't get to talk about this part much.
So for
But
the
it was
people
a
who don't know,
possession.
so for people who don't know
Yeah.
what Kundalini awakening is, could you explain?
Yes, most certainly I will. A Kundalini awakening. So there are a number of different types of yoga. Kundalini is one of them. And the Kundalini is the energy or the channel, the prana that flows from the root chakra, which is in the pelvic floor, through the crown chakra. So you become integrated. It's your center. Pilates works on the same thing. All of these disciplines are saying the same thing in their own way. But when the Kundalini arises, when the Kundalini awakens, there is an opening and an integration that allows for the full flow of chi, Chinese medicine calls it, or energy to be flowing integratedly from root chakra to crown chakra. So everything's flowing the way it's supposed to. You're fully potentiated, you're in conscious contact, and you're rooted and connected. So you're starting to really like sail through life. So she had this awakening where she came to consciousness, kind of woke up in her life, but along with her own spirit re-entering her physical self, all of these other voices and spirits, some of which were generational, because it was clear that some of the voices and the messages she was getting were coming from ancestors past, because they were directly related to her own family's life, like the patterns of her family. But there were other entities, they're called, that came in and they were messing with her software. It's like having malware
Yeah.
in your conscious. They were telling her to do things that she wouldn't have done of her own accord. And we worked through a process of internal family systems therapy, which I also practice, and somatic therapy, and also working with the principles of yoga, because that was her home base. She had a Kundalini awakening, so yoga was her foundation.
Hmm.
So we work she already knew with the methods that I have available to me to help her distinguish what she was hearing from who she actually was. And when
Hmm.
she was able to get that clarity again, and also sort out the issue with the finances with her partner and their children, she was able to start driving the bus of her life.
Wow,
So
that's
those
powerful.
are
That is powerful, and that's useful. Like that's something that I never even considered was a thing that people did. So this is really interesting. So like, what do you wish people actually knew about the way you practice and what and how you help people?
what I wish people knew is that I really am here to be the space for them. I'm here to show up in service of their awakening, the manifesting of their highest vision and their highest good for their lives. It becomes challenging in this position because it is a transactional relationship, meaning there's an exchange, so there's a transaction, but money is one of those things that's transacted. And
Hmm.
there are other things that are transacted. There may be people listening, you may be out there listening right now saying, well, what else are you transacting? There's money and that's it, right? No, the more profound elements of the transaction and the more profound elements of the transaction take place in the realm of the spiritual and the energetic, the psycho-emotional, the psychodynamic. That's the real transaction. It's the psychodynamic and it's the psycho-spiritual exchange. But because there's money involved in that transaction, people pay me for my services. It's how I'm able to support myself. And I think you just answered the question too. There are multiple answers to the question of what do you wish people knew? It's all connected. It really actually is. And it's one of those things, again, we understand it intellectually, like we get it
Yeah,
on paper, but, and this is the work, it's the getting it. We don't understand something until we've actually lived it.
yeah.
And that's where the money piece comes in too. Money helps you live your own truth. So once you start to live these things, that's when you get it. That's when the soul transforms and wakes up. And that's when you become the magic. You become the magic.
So last question. When you think of your mind, who is a person that you wish would take advantage of what it is that you do and how you help people Like it doesn't have, you don't have to name a name, but it can be like a type of person, a type of individual that you wish would take advantage of your services and how you help people.
It's the mom or the woman who feels alone and abandoned in the world, the woman who feels alone in the universe. That is who I wish would take advantage of my services. The woman who is unable to sleep at night or can't sleep fully through the night because there's all that background financial pressure. And there isn't the traditional partner parenting relationship if that woman has kids, or she's a single woman in the world, business owner, figuring it out on her own, wants to do great things, knows she's like dying to do great things, can't figure out how to make it happen because money is the factor,
Yeah.
knows that there are limiting beliefs, knows that there are things that are in here kind of blocking her from being the best version of herself, but doesn't quite know what they are. She can identify them, can't quite get to them. That's the one.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for joining me for this interview. It was quite insightful. I learned a lot. It's a whole new perspective that I hadn't considered, but it's always, there, like it's something that affects everyone. So this is actually a really unique approach to what you're doing, and I'm sure that like a lot of people need this.